the only soft technology we have, not really technology, but organic method we have of taking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere now, which really impacts global warming. So it's really serious to plant trees. I mean, I have a granddaughter. I'm always talking about my granddaughter, and I wonder what her future is going to be like. Our children's future is at stake. This is the only thing we have. We talk about geoengineering, it hasn't been perfected yet. Okay, so I am delighted to introduce our guest speaker, Dana Sussman, and she is the senior forester with the Florida Forest Service, and I'd like to tell you something about her background. She began her career with the Florida Forest Service in 1989 in South Florida, and then we were lucky that she relocated to Central Florida in 1994. She received a Bachelor of Forest Science from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and, we saying it right? Urbana-Champaign, right, okay.
The Midwest.
Well, I know. She is an International Society of Arboriculture. These are very foreign terms for me. I'm actually an artist who's gotten into environmental things. Certified Arborist, Project Learning Tree Facilitator, and Certified Burner. She enjoys providing private landowners with the tools they need to better manage their forests. The opportunity to educate youth and adults about the positive impact forest lands has on our well-being in Florida and on our planet and the economy is a very rewarding part of her job, and I'm very delighted to introduce Dana.
How did you happen to go to the University of Illinois?
I grew up in Illinois, in the Chicago area.
Oh,
Yes.
I grew up in Decatur.
Yeah, okay.
Very close to Urbana.
Do you have a remote, or do I have to advance with the arrows?
This should work. I'll take my word for it.
I would be glad
I like to walk around a lot, so if I have the remote, it keeps me from having to stand here. I'll go ahead and start my introduction while
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Like Ann mentioned, I work for the Florida Forest Service. I'm a senior forester, and I'm part of what's called the Cooperative Forestry Assistance Program. All state forestry agencies have this type of program. There's a variation in the number of foresters who provide that in each state. I cover Orange, Osceola, Seminole, and Brevard counties. And my primary duty is to assist private landowners who have acreage that they're managing for natural resources, and primarily timber production, but also soil conservation, water conservation, wildlife habitat. So will this work now? Did
You can try it. I am not sure. If not,
Can you do it
I'm
on
glad
the keyboard?
Well, you're going to operate the keyboard. You're going to have
Okay.
to open
Yeah.
up to a PDF.
Okay.
PowerPoint.
And I want, if someone could alert me when it is 8:15, because I want to be sure I get to the tree selection, tree planting, tree establishment section, since you're all getting a tree that you're going to take home, and you may already know all the things you need to do, but so it'll be a reminder. If you haven't thought about how to plant a tree in a while, it'll be some new information for you. So today I'm going to talk, here's my contact information. I don't have business cards, so if anyone would like to take a screenshot of that, I'll leave it up for a little bit. I say I primarily work with private landowners, but I do a lot of environmental education and outreach. My agency, the Florida Forest Service, has a mission, and it's to protect and manage Florida's forest resources through a stewardship ethic to assure these resources will be available for future generations. We have 4 main areas that we are responsible for: fire protection and management, state lands management. We have over 1 million acres in Florida state forests, private landowner assistance, which is where I primarily fall, and then community and landowner education. Hopefully you're here today because you love trees, love plants, just love nature, and you are wanting to add a little bit more to your yard. I'm really happy to see the number of people who came to the meeting, because trees are a lure sometimes to get you to a place that you might have thought, well, maybe I don't want to come here. So there's a lot of variety in trees. The top left-hand corner, that's what a fringe tree will look like when it's grown for a few years. So it's a very beautiful tree. Hard sometimes to find it at nurseries. National Arbor Day is in April. It's always the last Friday in April. So next week, a week from this Friday, will be National Arbor Day. And I want to talk a little bit about the history of it, because when Ann and I talked on the phone about when I might come and speak to the group, it seemed like April would be a good month to link it to a tree giveaway. So Arbor Day is not exactly like some of our other holidays. Many of those, we think about what's already happened, things that happened in the past, people we want to honor. But Arbor Day, you're doing something for the future. All the trees we see out here, people before us planted them so we could enjoy them. And now we're going to plant trees, and we will see them grow, but hopefully they're going to provide shade and many other benefits for the next generation, for your granddaughter. The holiday started in the late 1800s because of Julius or J. Sterling Morton, and this is the Morton Salt family. He moved to Nebraska from Michigan, from Detroit, and when he got to Nebraska, it's wide open plains, there weren't a lot of trees. He and his wife, who loved trees, noticed that there were a lot of open planting spaces, so they worked to encourage people to plant trees. Here is his wife and he as a small boy, and he was also a newspaper writer and editor, so it was easy for him to write about trees and have that made known to the newspaper readers. And he just, I know the print is very small, really it's the photos that I enjoy looking at. But he got together, and the first Arbor Day was April 10th, 1872, and they planted over 1 million trees. And for that time, given the population, that was a lot of trees. They had an official declaration for that, and then states followed to add it. Florida, we actually have a state Arbor Day in January, always the 3rd Friday in January, because it's just more pleasant to be outdoors usually in January. Not that April is bad, but January is nicer. And trees are semi-dormant, so they actually handle the whole process of transplanting a little bit better. Some states, like Maine and Minnesota, their Arbor Days, state Arbor Days, are actually next month, because what if they have to wait for the ground to thaw and the last threat of frost to pass before they plant their trees. So again, this is, that print is way too small, I need to. So here's an official proclamation, and Orange County officially celebrates Arbor Day with a proclamation. The city of Orlando does, Apopka, Winter Park, Oakland. Many communities in Central Florida do have official Arbor Day proclamations and tree plantings. So he's been memorialized with a statue, and each generation takes the earth as trustees. So just hearing about, the action to try to prevent toll roads and keep rural areas rural, I mean, that's what you're enthused about doing and is very important. So here, just another quote, that he that plants trees loves others besides himself. And certainly we enjoy them, but we're also contributing to our neighborhoods, to our communities. The next few slides are just some of the official things about Arbor Day. Like I said, Florida Arbor Day is always the third Friday in January. Most communities, though, even with an official Florida Arbor Day, do wait until April to have their proclamation and their celebration. Again, just trees do a lot for us. We'll talk a little bit about the benefits. Arbor Day proclamations they can range from short to long. They usually have a ribbon attached to them, a seal. They are an official proclamation. So some of the ideas that you might want to think about for celebrating Arbor Day, certainly planting a tree is often the most common one, but there's other things you can do. Some people may not have room in their yard for a tree. They may not have a yard. They may live in an apartment or someplace that doesn't have a yard. So there are some other things you might think about doing. And these are, for me, I say as a forester, every day is Arbor Day, because really that's my profession, my life. So these are things that certainly would link to Arbor Day in April, but any time of the year, these things that you might consider doing to help our local environment, and that trickles outwards. Support organizations that plant trees. The National Arbor Day Foundation is one, but there's a lot of other nonprofits that are working in specific communities with targets of how many trees they'd like to plant in a certain year or a certain amount of time. Sometimes people just plant container gardens if they don't have a yard. It might be herbs, just anything green, because it's all going to help with oxygen production. And they say anything green that you see makes you feel better, both psychologically and physically. Host an Arbor Day party. That's kind of what's going on here this evening, which is good. The reduce, reuse, recycle, upcycle, where we try to not buy new things if we have something already that we might be able to use, or pass our things along to other people. Learning about proper tree care is important, because if you're hiring someone to do really any kind of work and they're using power equipment and they're doing it wrong, then you're actually not getting a good service for your money, and you may actually be contributing to negatives, not only for your tree, but to the environment. Just a few more ideas. Just get outside. Again, seeing green things is healthy for us. Volunteering at nature centers, buying used rather than new, doing community service projects, just being involved with your community. You know, everybody you have to prioritize your time and figure out what to do, but voices can be heard if you know where to speak and who to get to hear them. Reading a book or watching a movie about trees. And I say this because I always want to mention one of the most well-known Dr. Seuss books is The Lorax. But I always wish that he had written a sequel or a counterpart where instead of all the Lorax trees just getting chopped down and at the end we're all sad because there's no more Lorax trees, if someone had stopped this whole process, and a forester would have been a perfect character to add to this book, to say, you know, trees are a renewable resource, and if we manage them properly, we can get the benefits from them, including the things we need to harvest the trees for. But if we plant more, we'll continue to have what we need. So there was, when the Lorax came out, the wood products industry, the timber industry, actually had someone write a rebuttal. It's called Truax, and you can get this if you just, Google Truax, you can get it. It's in rhyme, so they did keep to the Dr. Seuss theme, but it just talks about those moments when if somebody would have said something or done something, that you could have stopped this kind of waterfall or the huge boulder rolling down the mountain where the Lorax trees were just being harvested. So some of our most loved books have wonderful messages, and others we need to kind of read between the lines and be sure that the message that we are giving when we read that book to somebody might need to be pulled back a little bit, or you have a discussion about what we could do to change the outcome. And then again, just donating or repurposing items instead of taking them to, having them go to the landfill where they never be used again. And then another quote, the creation of 1,000 forests is in one acorn. And again, the thought that one action can actually create a lot of good things. So I think we'll just, you guys have the idea now about all the, sometimes when I'm putting together a presentation, it's like I can't, oh, I love this slide, this has good things. So let's talk about why we might plant trees to help our planet, to inspire the next generation. When they see us doing something positive, then maybe they think, well, that's something that I could do. Remembering people who may not be here anymore with memorial trees. To do something positive for ourselves, just the physical work of planting a tree and then the satisfaction when that tree is finally in the ground. We do it as ceremonial things to celebrate Arbor Day, to begin a process in your neighborhood or anywhere in a park where one tree comes in and then people see how beautiful it is and they think, well, I would like to have a tree too. And improving our neighborhoods. Trees can add a lot to the value of real estate, just to the welcoming feeling of a neighborhood. The benefits of planting a tree are many, and Ann and I had talked just about, what are the issues at the forefront right now, and certainly saying either climate change or global warming, or there's a discussion of how you describe it, but certainly if we can do anything to help clean the air, to cool the temperatures, to conserve energy, it's all good. Whatever you call it, I think it's all going to be good and benefit the community. So trees do store carbon. Even after they're harvested, if they are turned into a table or paper or wood paneling, that carbon is still in those trees. So harvesting a tree does not release the carbon that the tree contains. And I want to be sure to say that because many times when you read articles about deforestation, they'll say harvesting trees will release carbon into the atmosphere. And yes, if they're burned, it will. And certainly the equipment they use, if they're using an electric chains or using gas-powered things, there is kind of a trade-off. But if the wood is kept in products and wood products, that carbon is still contained within those. Trees absorb the sun's rays and they cool us. Often the temperature under the shade of a tree can be 10 degrees cooler than if you were to step out into the full sunlight. So they definitely help. And it's really important with pavement because there's what's called the heat island effect, where if the pavement absorbs heat during the daytime, all night long it is cooling off and releasing that heat. Well, the grassy area, if a tree is growing there, that's not happening. So it's actually feeling the cool, the predicted nighttime temperature of, let's say, 70 degrees, whereas the tree in the parking lot, it may never get below 75 degrees. So you're altering the climate around that particular tree, which can be detrimental for them. And if we plant 3 trees, you all are helping one person get more oxygen. So it's going to take a lot of trees, but one tree is a start. So just some flyers, a couple other quotes. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. Pardon me?
Warren Buffett
Yes.
said that.
Yeah.
Maybe there's money in it somehow.
Well, there is. A tree farm, tree farmers, yes,
True.
yeah. It's a like a $9 billion industry in Florida. It employs hundreds of thousands of people, not just directly, but the ripple effect of other businesses. So agriculture in Florida is dominated by timber production. As citrus becomes less viable here, citrus production, certainly there are other crops filling in, blueberries, strawberries, peaches now you can grow in Florida, but forestry is a major component of the state of Florida's economy. So we talked about some of the benefits of trees. When I ask kids, benefits, usually we hear paper, pencils, but then there'll always be one who reminds everybody that probably the most important is oxygen. And then shade, aesthetics, energy conservation, just say a long list. They can screen our view from something we don't want to see. They can help buffer wind and noise. They can be more attractive with fruits and flowers. And then accent trees, smaller flowering trees can really add some pop to your landscape when people drive up.